Om na tatra suryabhati na chandra tarakam nemid vidyutobanti kutoyamagnihi tomeva bantumanabhati sarvam tasya basa sarvamidam vibhati. Om shantihi shantihi shantihi. There, within the inmost self of all living beings, the sun shines not, nor the moon, nor stars, nor fire, nor lightning, much less this tiny mortal flame. That one light shining, all else shines. By its light all is made radiant. May that light of pure conscious awareness enter into us and permeate us to the very core of our being. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Hiranmaye Parekoshe Virajan Brahmaniskalam Tachu Brahm Jyotisham Jyoti Tadyadatma Vidto Vidduhu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shining like burnished gold, highest and deepest, the core intelligence of living beings, partless and indivisible, ever pure and free of all taint, the essence in all things which all beings seek, either knowingly or unknowingly. There shines Brahman. It is that which the Guru teaches. It is that which the wise ones exult in. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. We welcome you here to our SRV Oregon Association in Portland, where we just arrived a few days ago after a wonderful summer retreat on the American River, in which we studied the Samkhya Yoga system very much in depth in a series of classes called the Two Gitas, looking into Sri Krishna's teachings in his middle of his life and toward the end of his life. And the Gita on the battlefield, Bhagavad Gita, and then the Uddhava Gita in the forest at the end of an age, just before he passed from the body. And so those were profound teachings. We learned the Adi Daiva Vidya, that is the Adi, original, Daiva, divine, Vidya, wisdom. The Samkhya Yoga is the oldest of India's darshanas, most likely, and takes us back to our source and allows us to come forth into manifestation, therefore providing an involution for every evolution. Or if you want to look at it in terms of reincarnation, you may. And this, of course, takes place inwards, not outwards only in a linear line, but back to the source of one's soul, to the archetypical soul and beyond, to formlessness. But both of these have been known by the seers, as Krishna says in the Gita. That is, the outer and the inner have both been known. The inner, of course, being transcendent in this case, and everything that leads to it. So, judging by the emails I've received recently, everybody's looking forward to the third and fourth class of the Akshi Upanishad. We've been selecting some of the Upanishads which are affectionately known as minor Upanishads, because we know that the 10 or 11 that Shankara commented on in 700 AD have been given that great soul's full attention, and therefore have become very authentic. And you'll see them in bookshelves in different languages around the world now. But the minor Upanishads, some of them more current, and probably including the Akshi Upanishad, because in it are quoted some of the more ancient slokas, like Om Sato Ma Sadgamoya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgmoya, lead us from lower truth to higher truth, lead us from the unreal to the real. And that's a portion of that is found in the Akshi Upanishad, quoted from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, a very voluminous work that's very ancient. So I too have been looking forward to delving in deeper to the Akshi Upanishad. Akshi really means to see clearly, sort of like the word darshana, to see clearly, and it has to do with the eye. And most probably that third eye that is talked about in 7 different religions I found, the Gyana-chakshu, or the eye that has to be made single and opened by spiritual practices, and unless you want to go through life blindsided and unprepared, also unprepared for your passing from the body in a conscious way, because that's all a part of spiritual practice in the world today too, is to keep yourself prepared. As Swami Vivekananda said, the minute we're born, we're all rushing towards death. So we ought to make friends with Yama, the Lord of Death, and see him as a power under the control of the Divine Mother, who helps souls transition from one phase to another, into new bodies if you wish, or beyond bodies, videha mukti. Hopefully Jivan Mukti, if you're coming back to bodies, living liberated soul. That's mentioned here in this Upanishad too. And or Videha Mukti, transcending all bodies, and gone forever, as Lord Buddha said. So, with the Akshi Upanishad in front of us, we enter into those teachings which are pertinent to the sun god, or Narayan, Surya Narayan. That is, we see this chart, which I'm just showing again briefly, because that was the main chart I created for this whole Upanishad, which is probably about 45 or so slokas long. We looked into the first 3 slokas when I was here, when we started it. Oh, and by the way, anyone did not receive an Akshi Upanishad last time, you can have one now, because it's not really in print. You weren't here, you were in New York. Oh, okay. And all the rest of you brought your scriptures, I hope. Good. All right. Give me the copy.
I'll do one more here.
You won't find them even in the minor Upanishads collection the Ramakrishna orders put out, so had to find a good translation, which is rare, and then print it out for you so we can have access to it in English. So for this series, as I was saying, I created this chart, and we've already looked at it because I just chanted before the class 2 of the 3 slokas that are shown on it here. There within the inmost self of every living being, that's Haran Maye Pare Koshe. Inside the koshas is this light dwelling inside the container for consciousness. And also this one here, shining with like burnished gold. That's Haran Maya. This is Om na tatra suryabhati, Surya, sun, na chandra tarakam, moon, nemo vidyut, lightning, kuto yamagnihi, fire. All those are little lesser lights, minor glares, outer lights only. And they have inner lights associated with them and inner senses associated to see those. Those are your dreams or kingdoms of heaven. Your dreams tonight, you're actually going to the kingdoms of heaven within. That's the only place you could go inside. And so it's inside your own mind, as India likes to say. These are the mind-only schools that India proposes. It's examined the human mind, not just the brain, which Western psychology might be doing, but the actual inner realms that the mind can and does travel to. Trying to open that eye, Akshi, and see where you're going, both inner and outward. Like if you've had 12, 13, 14 lifetimes like the Dalai Lama has, then you must have opened that inner eye so you can move in and out to different bodies. See your way even into the fetus and then out at the time of old age, and have a life of full transition available to you until such a time when you've accomplished everything here on this earth that you've come to do, and you give it up and send it to hell in a handbasket. That's where it always goes. So this outer world is like a hole in the ground. One Swami wrote me last week and said we should give it up because it's like a hole in the ground. And most people are like vipers inside that hole, waiting to bite you. Or Sri Ramakrishna said the world is like a hog plum. It's all skin and pit and flesh. The flesh that's there is just a very tiny bit, and if you eat that flesh, if you can get it apart from the skin and the pit, then it gives you indigestion. So they're not very kind to this world as a world existing independently from Brahman. But if you can include it in with Brahman and see all of the facets of it in the right light, that is, if you want to call asato lower knowledge, leading to higher knowledge, then it can be a place of joy and peace and bliss for as long as your mind can remain in sattva. So we always try and keep ourselves in sattva. As Gollum should have said in the movie, keep that dual mind singular, and if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. So with the sun god, that's always apparent. That is, Surya Narayan, as he's pictured there, is constantly granting us what's called the flood of days in this Upanishad. If you remember reading that, that Samkriti, this rishi, repaired to the solar world. He had to repair, means he had to go to the solar world. That's not outward, because if you get too close to that sun, everything will burn up there. So you're going into the solar world that's inside of you, probably through the solar line, like Ram and his father and grandfather, all the way back to Svayambhuva, one of the earliest of all souls. So if you're going inward like that, then you reach this place of the sun's residence. And it says, there he glorified the sun by means of the science of the wise. Salutation to the blessed Lord, the glorious sun, the power of the eye to see. Salutations to the sky wanderer. Salutation to the commander of the army of light. Salutations to darkness, which is only the excess of light. Salutations to energy. Salutations to light. So, let's say, for instance, if the owl looks, it just sees blackness. You see the light is there, but it overwhelms the orb. Then, lead me from the unreal to the real, from lower truth to higher truth. From death to immortality as the Om Sato occurs. I'm going through these first openings quickly because we had them 2.5 months ago. Of the essency of purity, the Blessed One scorches the sins of the sinful. It is the blessed swan, the essence of purity, the prototype of the bound soul, or the jiva. And then here, which is placed up here as said in the quote, here rises the sun, thousand-rayed, existent in myriad ways, the life of all animate beings. I meditate upon him who is omniform, compassionate, omniscient, ambrosial, of the essence of light, the scorcher. Salutations to the blessed Lord, the Sun, the offspring of the infinite, the power of the eye, the flood of days, the flood, all hail. So this constant life, many, many beautiful days and nights that fly by, all granted by the sun. Whether you look at that life as inner or outer, or hopefully both, that light is there. And this is what Samkriti is saying to the sun god when he meets him. So he has to sit and meditate on the sun, and with his samyama, because he's obviously a master yogi. So if he uses dharana, dhyan, and samadhi, which is the sixth, seventh, and eighth limbs of yoga, and he puts those together, it's called samyama. And you can go anywhere and uncover anything you want if you perform samyama as a yogi. So he performs samyama on Surya Narayan, and after a time sees that great light, approaches it, and offers him this obeisance which we just read. That's how to butter up the sun god, or any other god, which is really your own self, but in different forms at different levels of your consciousness. And then the sun responds. He says, thus glorified by means of the science of the wise, that's this science of praising, the Lord in the form of the sun was highly gratified. He said, whichever Brahmana studies without break this science of the wise never contracts any eye disease. None is born blind in his family. Teaching this to 8 Brahmanas, one becomes perfect in this science. Whosoever knows this is magnified. Well, we're at 12 here, so hopefully I can teach it to 11 today. 12, it reminds me today is just 12 apostles of Christ, and 16th of Sri Ramakrishna today is Swami Advaitananda's birthday. He was one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. And that's a beautiful word, of course, Advaita, non-dualism. So we honor him today, along with the sun god, Surya Narayan. Then we went on to begin the second section. That was part 1 of the Upanishad, a quick review for all of you who weren't here, and remembrance of all who were here. And part 2 begins with, then verily Samkriti said to the sun, after the sun has been gratified and opened up, Samkriti says, teach me Brahmavid. Now that's, of course, the higher knowledge. Asato Masat Kamaya is take us from lower knowledge to higher knowledge. So lower knowledge would be science and our various secular sciences here, and India has always separated them from knowledge of Brahman, direct knowledge of Brahman. That's Brahmavid, and therefore had a higher goal in mind than the world and riches and fame and power, things that can come from these lower sciences, and sometimes with unfortunate results. So when he says, teach me Brahmavid, then Surya answered him and said, listen, Samkriti, I shall set forth the knowledge of reality, so hard to come by which knowledge alone you will become liberated while living in the body. So there's the first mention of the Sanskrit in the transliteration there, Jivan Mukta. That's the word that Swami Shishananda, my own guru, here in Portland for so many years, used to say all the time from the podium. He wanted the West to go beyond the intellectual frame of reference and attain Jivan Mukta. So he was waiting for one of those to emerge in the West. But what stands in the way of that, since the many years since he's passed away, that I see, is the West's constant penchant and belief in transformation. There is no transformation in Brahman, so you're going to have to reach an immutable state, and every thinker, every savant, every Western intellectual trips up on the fact that Brahman is immutable and immaculate and unchanging, is aparinama in Sanskrit. So if you don't understand that, then you'll go on thinking that Brahman changes, the world changes, God changes, and you'll mix them up like oil and water, which, by the way, don't mix. If you look at the cylinder, hand me that. Teaching you can teach yourself first and then your kids later is that spirit and matter do not mix. They only appear to. And that's probably a matter of about 45 seconds. But hopefully it won't take you 45 lifetimes to realize this and reach the goal of human existence. That you must discriminate between the wheat and the chaff, between the real and the unreal, between the mutable and the immutable, between the essential and the non-essential, between Purusha and Prakriti. However many ways that has been said in the different philosophies and different religions of the world even, to know that these two are separate and will never mix, affords you, well, I'm thinking of a very beautiful word in yoga, kaivalya. So kaivalya means separation from nature. You'll finally get separation from the form-producing machine called nature. It's not going to be a popular thought, especially in a secularized, materialistic Western society of today. But that's what all the great souls attained. They got their badge of formlessness, if you want to. Formlessness with a capital F. Not just emptiness. Because emptiness is like deep sleep. Emptiness is like seated stage, seated samadhi. You still have all the propensities for giving rise to worlds, name and form and time and space inside of the great mind. But you want to go beyond that great mind and attain that which is beyond both manifested and unmanifested Prakriti. God with form, God beyond form. You have to go beyond them both and then reach the highest level. That would be Jivan Mukta, although in Jivan Mukta you retain the ability to come back into the form without actually being the form. Could be born without being born. Namrichurna Shanka Namri Jati Beta. I have no father, I have no mother, I have no birth, I have no death. Even though he was in his 20s when he said that. That is Shankara. So already Brahmavidya is being mentioned, you see, and discoursed upon. But it's so hard to come by. As through many lifetimes, Sri Krishna says in the Gita, one will miss that essential knowledge and yearn for it and strive for it, be born finally in a household of good, prosperous people, and then go on with the yoga in that state, and then be born in a family of rishis, like he was, Sankriti, and then to be born in a family of yogis, very hard to attain because yogis don't always have families, seldom have families, and then finally reach the goal of human existence. So this is why we're not seeing the West produce any Jivan Muktas yet. That we have to make sure we prepare the way for that and understand that Brahman is a parinama, beyond all transformation, beyond all tricks of the eyes and ears, beyond all the transmutations of nature and anything else that attracts us outward and makes us miss the point. Distraction, that's the great problem. Jangang Kantru Rinpoche told me that in person one day. In this age, the great problem is distraction. Maybe 100, 150 years ago it was worldliness, said Sri Ramakrishna. So, wholly undistracted, that single eye, open, and One sees the self in everything and everything in the self. And then one will come upon that Brahmavid, which Surya Narayan here is teaching Samkriti. And then that was the first sloka we looked at. We studied it last time. I showed the 4 levels of the Guru chart, if you remember, how one becomes a Brahmavid. That is, first you have to, when you look at your teacher, you have to see a Shrotriya must be able to transmit the scriptures to you. Cut off the head and tail and give you the essence. Krishna said, the fish. Cut off the head and tail, the fish. And then must also be a Kamahata, has no desire for you other than you reach the highest goal, Jivan Mukta, or enlightenment, if you will. And then number 3, Abhijna, lead a unostentatious lifestyle, unattached to things. And then finally Brahmavid. And then, so you had those 4 qualifications, and then you'll see that from there's 7 stages of knowledge that branch out from that. So some gurus have the first 4 qualifications, Brahmavid, but then there's Brahmavidvaraya and Brahmavidvarishta and Brahmavidvarayan. So all of these are higher and deeper knowers of Brahman that are present. But those first 4 qualifications are given again by Shankara. We wish they had been given in the West before many of these so-called teachers came our way. And we would have been more careful. So we took that chart, and then we read Sloka 2. This is all review right now. And this, of course, has to be said, as Sri Ramakrishna said to Swami Vivekananda, told him the non-dual truth, I and my Father are one, or thou art that. And he said, keep this very quiet inside of yourself and take it out whenever you want, but then go on with your life. So you have to hear this non-dual truth first. And then it's so enigmatic and so inscrutable a piece of wisdom that you'll hear it and not be able to understand it maybe for some years during your practice, because if you're practicing you haven't realized the goal yet. It's one of the strange things about spiritual practice. Yet you have to do spiritual practice in order to realize the goal. So there's no way around that. Unless you're enlightened in a previous lifetime, like say Ramana Maharshi and so forth. So there you are with this inscrutable piece of knowledge. You have to work on it, sort of like like the oyster getting a piece of sand, and it irritates it. So it dives deep in the ocean, turns it into a pearl. That would be that one enigmatic piece of information that you're looking for all your many lifetimes. So put here by Surya Narayan, all is one, unborn, tranquil, endless, certain, and immutable. See reality as spirit, then be tranquil and at ease. It's the first teaching he gives them. It's of the non-dual nature. Sounds much like Om Drishyam Pratitam Pravilapayan San Matram Anandaganam Vibhalayam. Anandaganam, a mass of bliss. Reality is an indeterminable mass of bliss. So, therefore, what should you do? You should take what's outside and what's inside and render them into one state. Then pass your time contentedly and be free. Meditate on that state. Pass your time contentedly and be free. So if you're seeing 2 all the time and meditating on 2, then you've got this problem of transformation seeming real. Nature seeming real. Your body seeming real. Your senses seeming real. Your dream state seeming real. Everything seems real to you, and it's all unreal. It's all dreamlike. Insubstantial. And that's where we can go to the chart on the meaning of objects and look at that next. By the way, I have this up first, and this up first, of course, just for a reminder, but I don't think I brought this last time. This is my chart on the 108 Upanishads and where they fall inside the 4 Vedas. And you can see like a star map. You see, you are here kind of thing. In this particular chart, you can see it that way too. Because those 108 Upanishads are divided into the 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. And so the ones underlined there on this chart, if you want to come up and look at it at the break, the ones underlined there are the ones that Shankara commented on. Therefore, they're authentic. They're considered to be stamped with an approval by an illumined soul in the present age, because 700 AD is fairly recent for India. So you'll see 10 of those or so underlined, and we've studied many of those already in the previous years of SRVdom. But here you see Rig Veda with its 10, and here you see the Shukla Yajurveda and the Krishna Yajurveda. And you can see here under the Krishna Yajurveda, the Akshi Upanishad. So it falls in that division. The Yajurveda has 51 of these 108 Upanishads in it. Vedanta is Upanishad, because Veda Anta means the end of the Vedas. So at the end of the Vedas you have, at the end of the Vedic period, you had these, this 4th level of time, you see, and 4th phase of time, and that was the Upanishadic era. And those were when the non-dual truths, like this one we just read, all is one and so forth, got introduced into the word, the spoken word, before then maybe not even written down, but just passed from family to family, and memorized, like I've been asking all of you to do over the years. Put them into your memory, and then you don't have to go to a book or anything. You can just roll it over in your mind. That's called manana, yeah, or yukti, either one of those words. You have to, somebody wrote me, you see, had watched my Tibetan Buddhist class and wrote and said, I was talking about gleaning knowledge, and that person said, yes, but knowledge is gotten by meditation. And I wrote back and said, no, not exactly. Meditation is best for either wasting your time for years and years with a blank mind, or realizing formless essence, which is its real purpose, seeing God face to face, which of course is a formless reality. So otherwise, there are better ways or other ways to reach knowledge. That is, you study the scriptures, you hear it from the teacher, and then you practice manana, and roll it over and over in your mind for years. And that's how knowledge becomes introduced to your mind and becomes a part of the fabric of the mind. And just like food becomes part of your sinews and your muscles and everything in you, your organs and so forth, when you digest it properly. So knowledge has to run the same route and inside this mind. And it came out of the great mind that way. That's Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the Trinity, the great mind. And everything is made of it. All of this is made of knowledge. I mean, you find out the separation process from even an object in nature. So everything is mind made manifest. All objects are just knowledge concretized. My teacher's teacher said, that greatest of all women, Sri Sharda Devi. So it's just mind made manifest, and so everything is a sankalpa, or production of the mind. And it comes from the causal seeds out into the subtle state called the heavens, and then it proceeds out to the physical universe called the gross state. That's called the 3 worlds. And that's why we say Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May peace come to those 3 worlds. Because anything beyond those 3 worlds is already in peace. And beings aren't returning again and again from those 3 worlds. They're returning from those 4 inner worlds. They're returning in these outer worlds again and again, caught with the ancestor loop and able to get free. So that's actually some of what's coming up as far as objects and their knowledge. It's the next sloka. So all of this coming from this idea of all is one, unborn, tranquil, endless, certain, and immutable. It destroys all doubts when you entertain it. And so you should see reality as spirit, as non-dual, as consciousness would be the word. As you see, you have maybe a dancer or you have an athlete, and they're so convinced they're the body. Everything for them goes on the body. The body, everything they do depends on the body. But consciousness is different. You're separated out from the body. It's what persists. It's what's before the beginning and after the end, and in the middle too. Sri Krishna says, we had that sloka last week at the American River in the Uddhava Gita. So anterior to both life and mind is the Atman. That's pure conscious awareness, timeless and deathless. So it transcends beginnings, middles, and ends, and transformations that happen in them. Like I said, it's a-create, not create. Everything create comes from the mind, so just like you'll have to transcend the body, you'll have to transcend the mind too, and make it one, make it dissolve it into its essence, like a sugar cube into hot tea, Sri Krishna said. So everything will then be one sweet liquid. So just to mention here where you see where we are in the star map of the Upanishads, this great wisdom that's thousands of years BC, and timeless beyond that too. In the eternal dharma, we call it sanatana dharma is the word. Some of these are gone, you see, probably maybe hundreds of them are no longer available to us. There were only 108 that Vedavyas could gather at the end of that era, father of Vedanta. But many of them were lost, and probably many more were not written down. But is that supposed to concern us? Does the extinction of the dinosaurs concern us? Does the disappearance of Adolf Hitler concern us? Well, it should, because he'll come back again. Everything returns, like the river, Lord Buddha said. So luckily for us, we have all of these Upanishads written in letters of molten gold across the interior mind of the seers who practiced manana and put them into words, wrote them down. It came from the mind. So just because it disappears in the outer doesn't mean it's going to disappear from the inner. It's eternal. That's what eternal means, and what infinite means. So that's a matter of she who picked up the pen to write in the first place. Divine Mother of the Universe, we call her Mahashakti. Everything is her wisdom. That's why it's called Mother Wisdom in our tradition. Mantranam Jivabhuta Tuya Shmrita Shakti Rupaya, out of the Tantras. See, Tatahina Vararoha Nishfalaha Sharda Bravat. That word Sharda is in there. I like that. So it means basically, she whom the seers know and remember as the imperishable is the Mahashakti. Without her, O fair one, like fair one would be the sun god, without her, O fair one, all the tattvas are about as useful as clouds without any rain. Tattvas mean earth, air, fire, water, ether, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, seeing, and fourfold mind, and all these. These are tattvas that consciousness occupies in any given lifetime. Comes sancharaha, prati sancharaha, comes from out inside and then returns through this line of transitions. So it start very subtle, back in unmanifested prakriti, and kick the gunas out of equilibrium, so something would vibrate, and then when something vibrated, a form could be made. You could occupy the form, and that would happen in many different levels, lokas or worlds or akashas, like Russian dolls hidden inside of each other. And you're taking them apart. So, without her, without Shakti, all these tattvas would be about as useful as clouds without any rain. She is the secret in all mantras, whose essence consists of the highest non-duality, the Tantras say about her. So, it would be like singing one of our songs that we like to sing sometimes. It's all about Mother Kali. She says basically, all words are her sacred mantras. All the sounds you hear are her mantras everywhere. So everything exists in a word. So anyone that said basically that words don't mean anything, or it's all the words don't mean anything, would feel out of place here with us. Because everything exists inside of a word. Just like so much power exists inside of an atom. See, so much power of Shakti exists inside of every letter of every word. All the letters of every alphabet form her necklace. See, she wears those. So, beautiful teachings. We'll sing about those later. But let's keep to this. So he gives that first sloka of non-duality, classic of the Upanishads like that, and we took that, and I showed you the chart on ajati at that time, if you remember. Ajati means non-transformation or non-birth. Aparinama is non-transformation. Ajati means no birth, no death. Jati is death. It could also mean cultures and classes and different kinds of beings, all that erased, you see, ajati. So, showed you that chart of the meteor going through the circle of space, if you remember, and toward that oneness, shooting star going into emptiness or non-duality in that case. And then we recited this sloka 3. The adepts know yoga to be the non-knowing of plurality. It's a nice way they put things in a sort of obverse way. So to say they know non-duality, but you could also take it and say, actually it's the non-knowing of duality or plurality. They just don't see that anymore. That's been erased in them. The adepts know yoga to be the non-knowing of plurality and the spontaneous attrition of the object-seeking mind. Rooted in yoga, perform actions, or averse to all actions, perform them not at all. It is up to you. So if the mind is object-seeing, then it's caused to be ashuddha, impure. But if it's free of attachment to objects, then it's called Shuddha. That's stated at the outset of the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, which we've been studying in San Francisco. So that gives us opportunity to go to this teaching. A very basic teaching, really, but be surprised how few people entertain it. And we mentioned the tattvas there. You see up the left-hand side of this, pretty much a list of many of the tattvas which consciousness courses its way through. If it were in the body, and there's, as the Upanishad sloka says here, object-seeking mind, then it's convinced about solid objects, and it doesn't know that the solid objects come from thought forms that are in the mind, and it hasn't made that connection yet. But you can make that connection by connecting earth to smell and water to taste and fire to sight. He would want you to connect fire to sight. That's what he just said, really. Samsmriti at least knows that much, basically, because he calls him the power of the eye to see. You see, blessed Lord, Son, you are the power of the eye to see. You're sky wanderer, the commander of the army of light. You're even darkness, because darkness is just an excess of light, our inability to see. Also, darkness could be called Mother Kali, because that's a soothing, deep, warm blackness. They describe it when they see it. Actually, some seers say it's beyond light, that blackness. So whichever way you interpret it, it works in its own setting. So you can see here from this chart that there are this graph, kind of an involution and an evolution, and all on this carrier of consciousness, would be how the Upanishad stated. Prana is the carrier of consciousness. Indram, Mitram, Varunam, Agnir, Matarato, Divya, Sasuparna, Garutman. Garutman is Garuda. So Garuda is the carrier of consciousness. It's a big dragon bird, and he's depicted in form. And Vishnu rides on him, and Vishnu represents consciousness. So Garuda can go into the highest worlds and out to the lowest worlds in the form of higher thought that's animated by prana. And so gross prana out here, psychic prana in the mind, and chit shakti's energy, shakti power at the highest level. It's all under her auspice. The bird flies under her auspice. So any tattvas are there, you could see them, the solid objects, the gross elements 5, the gross senses 5, the thought objects 5, the subtle elements 5, the subtle senses 5. This is called the quintuplication process. If you know the quintuplication process and you put it in your mind, then you'll never get lost, no matter when you're born, Satya Yuga or Kali Yuga. Age of light, age of darkness, you'll still be able to get in and out of your form. And you'll also be able to get out of your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep with much more facility if you know the quintuplication process. It's something that you can easily imprint upon your thinking process, so you won't get lost again in Maya or samsara. The projected worlds come from thought. Thought is there in the ego-mind complex. That ego-mind complex is happy when it's put itself under the auspice of the ever-shining intelligence. See, that's the real meaning of the sun god, is intelligence. Those billions of suns in the sky are just thoughts. In a deeper realm, those are great thoughts, those suns. There's one that takes many years to fly around, I think, now, they've discovered. Years and years to fly around it, it's so big. So I wonder which seer had that great thought. And then cosmic awareness, of course, would be more like the Mahat, the great mind, God's mind. And everything in the beginning was the word, so everything tracing it back to Om or AUM, which is really waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, and Turiya. So all powered by this Garuda bird under the auspice of Divine Mother, Chit Shakti. The symbolisms are all there in form, but also the actual tattvas are there. You can look at things via the gods and goddesses forms, or you can look at things via tattvas. You can upasana dhyan or tattva gyan. You have to know the principles. You can also know the deities that are there at the foundation of all the principles, and which god goes with which world and so forth, which mantra goes with which deity. Holy Mother said when Sri Ramakrishna was alive, he taught me which mantras go with which deities, so she could meditate on them. To bring out the meaning of objects then is very important, and a simple way of doing it is, there's the three worlds, by the way, internal, external, and transcendent, all coming out of the word Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. If you know the great Gayatri, that's here. May we always never meditate on the radiant effulgence of the Supreme Being, abiding in our hearts and minds eternally. That's the great Gayatri mantra that there's probably no formula of words repeated more often by more people in the world right now than the Gayatri. Millions and millions of people are saying that, some of them many times a day. That's all Mother Gayatri. And if you want, then you can connect the internal words to the internal world. Let's go the external world first. The external world to the solidified tree, the internal word to the atomic particle tree, which is the real tree, and then transcendent world to the Atman or Buddha nature tree, which is of course a teaching given by Dalai Lama. The tree has three levels of existence, inner, outer, and transcendent. So what we're seeing, trees, houses, objects, the meaning of objects is the unreal world. It's the changing world. In fact, changing at a billionth of a second if you want to try and look for its essence. And the real secret in it is not its atomic power, but is that the whole tree is inside of you, as the Sufis would say. I went to look for the tree of existence, or I went to look for the fruits of existence. I found out that fruits, branches, and tree were all inside of me. So you're all coming back to the primal Purusha, or the archetypical soul, your oneness with divine reality, after all of these are sloughed off. Because why? Because they're unreal. The unreal never exists. The real never ceases to be.
The truth about both
has been known by the seers, yes. Na asat vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha, is how Krishna puts it in the Gita in the second chapter. The unreal never exists. The real never ceases to be. Or Pramadena Kim Karishyami Vrittima. Ignorance is unreal, so how can it cause any real doubt? The Avadut says in his scripture. Ignorance is unreal, so how can it cause any real doubt? You should see first the truth, that the unreal never is. And then you'll be with the real, and there can be no doubt existing there, and no fear, and no ignorance. Doubt, fear, and ignorance are the curtain of nescience in your mind that are blocking things. Thin it out. So, playing with the tree as the object, then, you see that it's got an outer existence, an inner existence, and a transcendent existence too. That it's really, the real tree is really its atomic particles that's been seen by science. But there's an essence tree too that they haven't seen. It's like the goldness of gold, the silverness of silver, the manliness of man, the womanliness of woman, and so forth. That's the essence of a thing. It's the thing in itself, and that's one and indivisible and transcendent. And so if we take apart a tree, take apart a tree, yes, but also an object in this way, we find pretty much the meaning of the object. What is the meaning for us as a lesson? There are two yogic rules that have been there since long before Buddhism proposed these kinds of truths too. That in the Gitas and so forth, in yoga, that objects are empty and that objects are actually mental projections. So from the standpoint that they're empty, there's a part A and a part B. They're empty of abiding substance, and they're empty of the ability to fulfill you. if you put those two together, then you'll get rid of appearances as a problem. Getting attracted to appearances over and over again, getting hypnotized by nature and so forth. And then you'll also see that no matter how much you entertain them in whatever ways, through the five senses, as a conglomerate of the five elements and so forth, that they'll never fulfill you. And you finally give them up and return to the only thing that can fulfill you, yourself, your true nature. Because that's what projected them in the first place. They came out of your mind. So if you're feeling loss about something, see, like lost Upanishad or something, oh, wait a minute, they came out of the mind of the seers, you see. And mind of the seers is connected back to Divine Mother, so I'll just go to her and ask her, like Sankriti is going to Surya to ask him, what is this ancient knowledge? So, a lesson, a teaching about objects. The second lesson would be that all objects are mental projections. In other words, they're your solidified thought. And they're not created out of nothing or by God. That's a correcting teaching. God doesn't create. God is a create. Nature creates, and it creates by the power of prana, but man does not live by food alone, so basically by bread alone. So there's a prana that's upholding everything. And you're going to have to look for the origin of that. Back to the origin of origins, which would be the Word. And then know that the Word was with God and the Word was God. And then you'll be able to put this together as he's telling him here in Sloka 2. All is one and unborn. So ajati. And objectiveless. And then the spontaneous attrition of the object-seeking mind can happen to you. And your mind will leave off clinging, what the Buddhists call selfish grasping. It'll let go of those things. And then you'll give up ideas like, I have to go do something for myself. See? I'll just do everything for God. Just let all selfish things go. And be rooted in yoga, he concludes. Perform all actions, or be adverse to them. It doesn't matter. Perform them not at all, if you will, but you'll understand them. Or, if you want, as I was about to sing and got sidetracked. Monopoli Bhajakali Icha Hoy Torde Achari Guru Datta Mahamantra Divanishi Japakori Monopoli Bhajakali. Meditate upon the Mother in any way you want. Spontaneously. That. Know her essence and be free. Or another way in which it's put here by the author of this song, O mind, this projected world is only a faint reflection of reality, consisting simply of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. That's there. Arranging and rearranging with hypnotic beauty. By attempting to grasp reflected images, we cheat ourselves of true experience. Turn instead to the original and discover the treasure of delight. Ram Prasad Sen, devotee of the Divine Mother. So he's found the secret of secrets. She is the secret in all mantras and the essence of non-duality, as the Tantras say. The only other thing in this chart I put here is this quote from the Peace Upanishad. Peace chants in the Upanishads is Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachite. It's all about fullness. And so from the infinite the finite has come, but even the finite is infinite, so only infinite remains. So everywhere you look, there's this infinity to everything. And if you can look at it at three levels, then you've got an advantage. But a greater advantage comes to you when you can trace it back to its source of origins. They call that utpatti. Very important in India to trace origins. Maybe we can quote this and then go on to another chart. Most beings beholding physical objects such as trees, animals, planets, etc., assume them to be real or actual. However, modern science has uncovered the atomic particle tree. Philosophy teaches about the illusory tree, its display being only an appearance. The luminaries going deeper speak of the Atman tree, or Buddha nature tree. Thus there are three levels to existence: the external, the internal, and the absolute. Knowing about this triple subdivision, along with the nature of each, the human mind espies the truth about all manifestation and swiftly frees itself from bondage to objects. So you're the seer. You should not become hypnotized by the seen, because the seen has come out of you, and somewhere in the process, from samadhi down to relativity, or from deep sleep down to waking state, you didn't see it all happening. It went by too fast. Mano javitvam, the mind is much, much faster than the speed of light, and transcends realms, not just hours and minutes and days and subdivisions of time, but can go through worlds in a split second. It's like waking up from a dream. So, mano javitvam is a word used in Tantra for the speed of the mind. Somewhere along there, you have to slow that mind down to see how you did this. See how it all got projected, and then withdraw it. Meditation is that slowing down. In fact, Brahmavidya here, who we just quoted and sang, says, practice meditation and cut time down. That's one of his teachings. So, slow everything down to its original vibration. And as you slow things down, you'll have visions of the inner worlds, kingdoms of heaven within you, and the beings there. Find your real friends, not your fair weather friends out here, but your real friends inside, Swamiji said. So that is coming off this sloka, number 3. Let's repeat it. The adepts know yoga to be the non-knowing of plurality, the spontaneous attrition of the object-seeking mind. So the mind should automatically just practice that detachment. It should just be actually until practice becomes spontaneous and natural. You don't have to do it anymore. And you're just seeing Brahman everywhere, and not objects and not worlds. Rooted in yoga, then, he says, this is a teaching of the sun god to Samkriti. Rooted in yoga, perform actions, or averse to them, perform them not at all. So it's up to the soul itself, Samkriti himself, to do that. But then he gives it another turn, and we'll move towards, I think we covered everything here. Well, the only thing I was going to say was that you see here on this chart, I added some detail, not since last time, but good to know what are these rays or emanations coming off the sun god. You can see them from lower to higher. There's his left arm, commander of the armies of light, and there's his staff, which is the staff of the flood of days that he will give to all beings. Endless, endless days. Have you thought about it? You've had so many days in your life, and so many days you'll have in future lives if you should take them. It's just granted to you like that, just one after the other, see, in an endless stream of light. Hopefully you're seeing it in light, and living in light. There you see his garland, the garland of nature around him, with the eternal flower of life at the center of it in his hands. So this is all from, of course, this beautiful description at the beginning of the Upanishad, where he's described as being all of these things. Commander of the armies of light, even sensual perception is one of his gifts. And the revealer of darkness, sensual perception, Up the right-hand side, prana, or life force, this very prana that's carrying things, is one of the gifts he grants from the sun. And it allows everything to grow, and the eyes to see. Mental comprehension then would be the next step inward, because you're seeing with an outer light, now you've got an inner light, so you start to see inner things when the third eye begins to open. So you're shifting levels of consciousness, and the sun is also shifting with you from external light to an internal light that lights your dreams, and hopefully will light deep sleep eventually, so you can see all the seeds there, decide which ones you want to water, or maybe not water at all. Like he says, you can act or you can give it up. Intelligence itself, like I said, right from the sun god, associated with Surya Narayan. Awareness even beyond intelligence. See, intelligence would like be the stream of particles off of the word. And the word itself would be awareness. And pure consciousness, find the word inside of yourself. The Upanishads say. Follow those streams of intelligence to the word and find the word inside of yourself. So you're all going back to your true nature, your swarupa, your Buddha nature, your Tathagatagarbha, your Atman, your Paramatman, your Busho. Different traditions are saying about that essence. And then, of course, the Mahashakti herself is in control of all this, what we just said. If you want to go up the left-hand side from lower to higher, physical light itself is a manifestation of reality. And knowledge, wisdom, insight, sentiency, and Brahman. So all of these things represented by Surya Narayan, because why? Because he is the son of the infinite. It's the manifestation of the infinite. So you can see how much more deeply India sees the sun than other cultures have seen the sun. There have been a lot of sun worshipping going on, right on down to our sitting on the beach getting a tan kind of knowledge. And all the way inwards toward what Egypt has done and so forth. But beyond all that is this real understanding of what the sun represents, all the way back to non-dual awareness and all the levels that accompany on the way. It lights your way if you know the tattvas, and then it also sends you toward the higher light when you give up this light outside. In the Upanishads, one slokas, man is sitting, the yogi is sitting, he's about to pass from his body consciously, and he says, all right, now I'm leaving, please, Lord, remove that orb in the sky because it's covering your true light. So he wants the sun to go away. That's an appearance. That's a lower level of light. It's a physical light only. And he wants to follow the star-strewn path, as Swami Sharananda said, one of Ramakrishna's disciples. Ramakrishna came to us down the star-strewn path. So all the suns, billions of them in the sky, also have to be crumpled into atoms. Right? We will crush the stars to atoms. We will unhinge the universe. Is how Swami Vivekananda said that. Abhaya pratistam. You have to be fearless to do that. So just before we left this chart again, see how it is more intricate than just what's shown there. Now let's go to the next level of sloka teaching. Because the sun god has a lot of teachings ready for Samkriti, he's probably been waiting for a student disqualified. So sloka 4 we're on now. Aversion is felt every day to inborn tendencies to act. Nevertheless, one tends to plunge into noble actions with gusto. So we have all these things we have to do, wanted actions, desired actions, unwanted actions, but noble actions, Arya it's called. Arya is the name for the Aryan race, actually means noble. This is a noble race, a sun-born race. So I can trace their genealogy and their heredity and their samskaras even more back to the sun god, or to the firstborn soul, the archetypical soul. So India follows this way, and I have a note here, start here in August. Well, too late for that, but I was close. So this is where we left off and began last time, Sloka 4. Aversion is felt every day to inborn tendencies to act. Nevertheless, one tends to plunge into noble actions with gusto. Probably be good for us then to show the ladder of that. This was an old image of a Nectar of Non-Dual Truth magazine I used behind this chart, philosophy of work. We need to start there at the hovel of heinous acts, where exacerbated karma goes on. Two men were digging, unburied an old metal chest. They were best friends. As soon as they saw the chest, they started fighting over it. And they pulled one way, pulled the other way. Their greed got hold of them. They began to curse each other's families for generations, before and after. Finally, the chest came apart, and there was just a bunch of rusty tools inside, worthless. So this is the kind of act, the hovel of heinous acts, you might say. Sri Krishna says about that, the demonic know not what to do or what to refrain from. Bound by 100 ties of hope, given over to lust and anger, they strive to secure, by unjust means, hoards of wealth for sensual enjoyment. Probably couldn't list more of the 6 passions in one sentence than he did there. Somehow managed it. Then there's the next level of work would be the shanti of selfish works. The shanti of selfish works. So there's a picture there. Once a man took up residence in an old hut. Soon the winds began to shake it. The man remembered that Hanuman was the son of the god of the winds, so he prayed to Hanuman. Still the winds did not abate. Next he remembered that Hanuman was the devotee of Ram, whose younger brother was Lakshman, and he declared, "This hut belongs to Lakshmana, O wind, do not hurt it." But the winds continued. Finally the man cried out, "This is Ram's own hut." But the winds blew stronger. As the hut began to collapse around his ears, the man rushed from the hut with a curse, yelling, "This is the devil's hut." So he had all his hopes in action and in work, like so many people. And in the end, work is just the devil's own hut. It gets you nowhere. You think it's getting you somewhere, but it gets you nowhere. The only thing that it can get you is knowledge, if you do it right. And with that knowledge, then you'll transcend works. Pretty much what he says here. Aversion is felt every day to inborn tendencies to act. But to plunge into noble acts with gusto, that would be much more noble, Arya. So he says, then you're getting towards duty when you're talking about that, how to do work. Do not work yourself out, it is of no use. Duty is the midday sun, whose fierce rays are burning the very vitals of humanity. It is necessary for a time as a discipline. Beyond that, it is a morbid dream. So if you can transform your mind about the nature of works and activity from action to inaction and so forth, because those who know that action is in inaction and inaction is in action, they truly know. So you have to come to know the nature of action and inaction. That's also in the Gita. So how to go beyond the domicile of dire duty? Get to the castle of charitable works. Lord Buddha says, do not think lightly of merit, saying, it will not come to me. By the constant fall of water drops, a pitcher is filled. Likewise, the wise person accumulates merit little by little and becomes full of merit. So, in Pali language, that would be called punya and papa. Quit doing papa, demerit, and unmeritorious work, and do this meritorious work. That's also mentioned by Krishna in the Gita, to that you should do works that are only ordained by the scriptures, is how he puts it. Don't do works that are not ordained by the scriptures. And there's the man carrying his ancestors balanced on each side, serving them. But you really only get to the highest level of karma, or karma yoga, when you arrive at these last two. The sanctuary of selfless service. In a rather cryptic way, Shisharda Devi said, "A flash of lightning is seen in a window pane, but not in the wooden shutters." It's a nice Zen koan for you. Only the pure of mind can see God in others and serve him there. In such beings, spiritual power gets awakened and liberation is attained. So the flash of lightning that's seen in the window pane are these seers. Everyone else are wooden shutters. No matter what comes from on high, from the Lord, they don't show it, they don't reflect it. But the seers will reflect it perfectly. So this is how they would look at selfless service. See God in other beings. Only they can see God in other beings. So therefore they'll go about serving God in other beings. They're very careful about that too. They don't serve humanity. They serve God in humanity. That's the distinction that Swami Vivekananda made. If you serve humans, then they start acting like humans and they get prideful. But if you serve God in humans, then they start acting godlike. Hopefully. And you'll raise them up by that kind of noble thought again. He says later here about that. Whoever entertains higher thoughts as regards to crossing over transmigratory life is said to obtain a first state of yoga. The rest are said to be just noble. So pretty soon the highest of all things is to want to use all yogas to get out of life, transcend life. Birth and death are very painful. You do not want to experience them again, Shisharda Devi said. And that's why I cherish and love her. Because others are trying to make the world okay. She's trying to get you up and out of the world of embodiment. Because it's full of birth, death, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death. And the soul never transforms or grows, so what's all that? What is all that you just described to me? It sounds like suffering to me. Suffering is First Noble Truth. Let's connect all the dots and see where these seers are coming from, and see why some Kriti went to the sun god to find out the light of understanding, to check his own wisdom, so that he can be a free soul and never fall into the trammels of transmigratory life again, at least not without consciousness. Because there is the Jivan Mukta who will come, the avatar and so forth. They know the rules and they know the tattvas and they know the teachings, and they're not likely to ever forget them at their own peril. So the last thing to do would be the abode of action and inaction, as I mentioned. And Shvetashvatara Upanishad, one of the companion Upanishads back here that we've studied, you saw on the chart, says, there are two birds, closely related and very much alike, which perch on the same tree. One of them eats ripe fruits. The other, however, refrains from eating any fruits and only watches as a spectator. So the actual Brihadaranyaka Upanishad version of that is that the other bird is sitting on a lower branch and eating ripe and unripe fruits, eating rotten and ripe fruits. So he's getting happiness and he's getting sorrow all the time, but the bird sitting in the higher branch is just watching, not eating, not partaking. So the art of inaction is related and explained in that way, how to refrain from doing all things. And I'd say, to make more sense out of that teaching, you would want to know about the difference between complete abstinence and moderation. That is, there's a middle path, and then there's a path of total renunciation. The monastics will go for total renunciation if they can manage it. And householders and people in the world will still have to practice moderation. It's best for them. Moderation of sense, action, all actions really. Moderate them. And extract the essence out of them. So those two charts, that is the yoga, the philosophy of works, and the four yogas, which we can look at briefly, are what I've extracted out of the some 350 charts I've created now to explain these slokas in the Upanishads and other scriptures. So we will look more at that after our break. Thank you for your kind attention. Huh? Thank you for returning with us. I've talked during the break to a few people who are watching the live streaming. I'm sure they're from different points in the world. For instance, Gudmundur in Iceland, who's coming next week to get initiated, and other souls in Hawaii, where I come from, and on the East Coast are looking in to our little group of 12 here to look at the Dharma via the eyes of the Akshi Upanishad, or the single eye of the sun god. And we happened to bring him out. It was a very dark, cloudy, late summer or early winter morning here, or early fall morning here, and just by speaking about him, he came out and it's all clear and blue now. So shows you the power of the mind. And he is the great mind. He's synonymous with the cosmic egg, or Hiranyagarbha, or Mahat, that illumines everything, that both outside and inside. And we're talking more about the inside in this case. Action that we've come to in the fourth sloka is generally thought of as outside, but remember, thought is father to the deed, so even a Western savant can express it in such a way to know that all action gets prompted by the mind and its thinking. So hopefully if the mind is in fine and fettle condition, our actions will be the same. Otherwise not. Or they may be uninformed, of a mixed variety, mixed karma, Shuddha it's called. And I didn't mention that in this chart, just going back for it, that as we went down the list here from very selfish works to selfless works, I had to put the different kinds of karma there. In Sanskrit, it basically would be called Sanchita, Prarabdha, Kriyamani, and Agami. That is past, present, future, and Kriyamani means just sort of spontaneously rising karma in the warp and woof of everyday life. So in this way we'd put it: exacerbated karma, accrued karma, recurrent karma, attenuated karma, neutralized karma, and dissolved karma would be a way of saying it with our English language. And beings that maybe even some of you have met, like I did on a few occasions, who are living in that dissolved state of karma and are free souls, like my Swami here in Portland, who lived here for 40 years, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj. May peace and bliss be upon him always. So with Surya Narayan shining his rays upon us, we were looking at the various kinds of karma in accord with the fourth sloka. Let me read all four. Then verily Samkriti said to the sun, "Teach me Brahmavid." The sun said, "I shall set forth the knowledge of reality so hard to come by which knowledge alone will you become liberated while living in the body. All is one, unborn, tranquil, endless, certain, immutable. See reality as spirit. Be tranquil and always at ease. For the adepts know yoga to be the non-knowing of plurality, the spontaneous attrition of the object-seeking mind. Therefore, rooted in yoga, Samkriti, perform all actions, or averse to all actions, perform them not at all." And then we went to this chart to show how people would perform actions with different levels of their consciousness. There were questions at the break about that I answered as I could. Self-willed, motivated, self-motivated karma, self-actuated karma, and then all the different grades of mentation or thought or no thought that follow that kind of action. People usually don't know that those actions will then create more karma, that create tendencies in the mind called samskaras. From those samskaras then are born more actions, and those actions are then born more samskaras. So it's sort of like the chicken and egg kind of riddle we have in the West, that it's very difficult to find which came first. We know that one just plays off the other, and if you know that there's no middles, beginnings, and ends that are actual, but they're just constant cycles of time, then you can make sense out of such wisdom, as Samkriti, I think, is trying to do here with the sun god. It's hard to say, of course, what level of Brahmavid Samkriti is at. Brahmavidvaraya, Brahmavidvarishta, how deep does his knowledge go? But repairing inside, as the Upanishad says, to find the sun god, he finds the source of all light. And so other souls have done that before, to sing things like Naham manusho nacha deva raksho na brahmana kshatriya vaishya shudraha na brahmachari na grihiva nasto bhikshurna chaham Nijabodharupaha Nimitam manaschakshuradipavrito Nirakalkiladhirakashakalpaha Ravir lokachesta nimita tatayaha Sanityo-palabdis swarupamatma. So this Hasta Amalaka Stotram is what this is called. And there are so many slokas on light in it. The second one that I sung here says, without the sun, no terrestrial actions are possible. Yet the light of timeless awareness allows the sun its moment of glory. That inner radiance, vast and conditionless, illumines the corridors of mind and senses. And that light am I, pure, boundless, attributeless and free. So Avadhut here is making, Hasta Amalaka is the name of one of Shankar's students who wrote this. In fact, those are the first words he uttered when he was in his 20s. He hadn't spoken up to that time, or in his late teens. Shankar said, "Who are you?" And he came out with this verse, and 10 or 11 other like it. The first time he ever spoke in his whole life. They thought he was mute and unable to speak. And then he comes forth with these great slokas that he'd been deliberating on. So this became a song attributed to him. Hasta Amalaka means fruit in the palm of your hand. So the implication is that you can take this Atman, or this Buddha nature, or this great light out of you and look at it any time you want, and then you hide it away again behind all the layers of work and karma. But you can see how that light of the sun, how he connects it with the terrestrial actions. And so therefore, if you are using the light of the sun to do benign actions, then the karma that comes from those is neutral. Or, however, you can also do it for charitable concerns, and then the karma that comes from that is what they call a gold chain. You get attached to thinking that you're helping people when they can only help themselves. And so a gold chain, iron chain is good and bad karma, but no chain at all is what you want. And therefore your works are dictated on no desire for any return, no desire for fruits, and not falling under the misconception that anything changes whatsoever, because it doesn't. It just appears to change. You, the helper, are Brahman. The one you're helping is Brahman. The act of helping is Brahman. The result is Brahman. It's all Brahman prior to any beginning, middle, and end. And that's what's called non-duality, or Advaita Vedanta. Swami Advaitananda's birthday today. So things like that get sung in terms of light. And while we're on the subject of action, Karma Yoga, of course, is one of these great teachings. So it would be well for us to look at the 4 yogas. Andrew, can you stand up and show this chart in its fully mounted condition? This is what you can do with these charts if you write to SRV or myself. And what one person who liked the Four Yogas chart wanted to put it on their wall so they'd be constantly reminded. So this is called Dharma Art. Dharma Art Wisdom Charts, or DAWC, dock. And so you can dock yourself to this, your ship to these charts. And there's plenty of them you can pick up. I hope you have enough wall space for many, many of them. A couple people sitting here. Thank you, Andrew. A couple people sitting here I went to their house last night for dinner, and they had at least 4 or 5 on their walls already. So those things that you really need to be reminded of, which we call Dharma or Jnana Yoga, which is another one of these yogas up here, how they work together, and how although all knowledge does lie within you, you have to bring it out and be reminded of it, remember it, and remember the mother of all wisdom too. There are different ways in which you can go about this. Action, path of action, path of devotion, path of meditation, and path of wisdom are the classic 4 yogas. And we were reminded of this ourselves when Swami Vivekananda came in 1893 to our country and talked about the 4 yogas being the new religion of this age. He wanted to strip away all superstitions in the name of religion and really put it in our hands that we could attain our own perfection in this life and be jivan muktas, as some kriti is being told by Surya here. And so that path of sadhana, or spiritual self-effort, is recommended by the seers. Krishna also told Uddhava that when we were studying him last week at the retreat on the American River. Said it could be, and it must be, that the seers really love those beings that free themselves, so they don't have to keep answering the please, please save me all the time. That beings will just sit up and realize their true nature, and then they can join the ranks of the knowers of Brahman, the Upanishads say, and be one with them. Or, when will I be able to dance with Moses, Jesus, Gauranga, Krishna, Ramakrishna? When will I be able to dance with them in ecstasy in their company? So you're looking for holy company of the highest kind, then you must qualify yourself for it. And the qualifying thing would be spiritual practice. Dharma is the closest thing to that Redeemer or that Savior. You don't have to wait 2,000 years for that Savior to come back. It's right here, right now, and it's available to you. And you need to just hear about it, shravana, manana, reflect on it, and then put it into practice and realize it. Nididhyasana. Get your own direct spiritual experience and free yourself in this life. And then join the knowers of Brahman. So some kriti, probably already a level of knower of Brahman, but he's going to intensify his love, intensify his knowledge, deepen his meditation, and purify even more his actions, his selfless actions to God and humanity. So the 4 yoga is a beautiful teaching in that way. And you saw the fully mounted version of it, one version of it. There are other people who have put different kinds of, there's one bamboo frame I like around the 4 yogas really nicely in Hawaii. So just knowing about these 4 yogas is very beneficial. And of course we know in the Bhagavad Gita every chapter is named after a different kind of yoga. 18 of them in that case. So there are many, many different kinds of yogas too. I actually could have brought that chart. But the 4 yogas are the main ones, and Vivekananda calls it the religion of this age. So this is realizing yourself as your own savior, and even beyond a savior, liberator, because there's salvation and then there's liberation. And the seers do make a distinction between those two. Liberation being very rare and very precious. Those who liberate actually will become those that can save others, and so if that's called upon. are needed in any given age. In the Satya Yuga, as Sri Ramakrishna said, everyone has discrimination already between the real and the unreal. So that was an age of light, where his light is shining in everyone, naturally. That's called ojas, actually, when you see a light coming off a being, like Buddha or Jesus. We'd call it an aura nowadays, but in Sanskrit that's ojas. And when it intensifies, it's called tejas. Tejas is a name for spiritual light that emanates out the very pores. You can actually almost see it if you have a somewhat psychic temperament, which I wouldn't wish on anybody, but it does have its advantages. Let's jump in at Karma Yoga so we can see this in another fashion. Performing actions selflessly and continually while taking refuge in me, by my grace he reaches the eternal undecaying abode. Krishna tells Arjuna on the battlefield, because Arjuna is engaged in a war. That's a kind of action that's karma-laden. If he can be a warrior without knowing that he neither kills nor is killed, as Krishna tells him, the Atman's never slain, and those who think it's slain, and those who think they're being slain, they do not know the truth. There's no birth and there's no death. There's no destruction for anything. There's just eternal life. But you have to be living in eternal life to know this. And attachment to the body, of course, would be running against that knowledge. You'd be fearful of your death and hang on, cling to the body. It's called abhinivesha in yoga. It's the fifth and lowest hell, to cling to the body. But you see that in people with bhakti intensified, for instance, prema, Sri Ramakrishna said, prema makes a man forget the body, which is usually so dear to him. Divine love, if divine love infuses the mind, then you don't even think of as the soul as the body, or the body as the soul. That's the first evolute of Maya, is to think of the soul as the body, and the body of the soul. Deha jasa hamkara, basically a hamkara ego, body ego, is myself, but that's the first evolute of Maya. That's what you have to watch out for first. And just take the soul as the soul, the body as the body. I think they separated by now, the soul and body. Then you can live in a state of non-duality without confusion. So, engage only in obligatory actions, what's called upon for you to do by the scriptures. You have a right to renounce other actions. If you're caring for your parents and they're a block to your spiritual life, give them up, Sri Ramakrishna said. If they're not a block to your spiritual life, serve them like gods. So anything that gets you free, like Lord Buddha leaving the palace of the Sakya clan when he was young, so he could come back later and liberate King Sakya and his family. That's necessary to do. You don't have to feel shamed or guilt about that. Get yourself free first, then only can you free others. Renounce action done for selfish motive. Perform all action with evenness of mind. Do not seek the fruits of action. Detach from the outcome of action too. Perform all work as worship, or labor as love, as Swami Vivekananda said it, and utilize all work to serve God and mankind. Also, make sure you work meticulously, but with detachment. So some of this could suggest slovenly work, like I don't care, or callousness or something like that. It's not the point. You just have to know that work only amounts to knowledge if it's done in the right way. Otherwise, it just leads to lifetimes of suffering. The dire duty, the midday sun that burns the very vitals of humanity, as he says here, is the outcome for most people. Since we referred to bhakti, let's look at that. Yoga of devotion. Those beings are serene-minded, beyond both grief and desire, same-sided and kind to all. Such a one attains supreme devotion to me. Bhakti, or Guna Bhakti, Raga Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. There are different levels of Bhakti. But it's the oil which helps the machine run without seizing up. If the mechanic comes, puts that oil in the machine, everything goes fine. Without love and devotion, then everything will seize up. Knowledge will become sterile. Meditation will become empty and pointless. So, if your devotion, according to your nature, is formless, and you don't have that feeling for God with form, that's okay. Just have devotion to discrimination between the real and the unreal. That's how Shankara put it. My devotion is to the discrimination between real and unreal. That'll keep you on the right track. So some points or bullet points about bhakti. Listen to accounts of God's deeds. Engage sincerely in devotional rituals, like we will do tonight at Shiva Puja and Sarvi Puja downstairs in the shrine. Purify heart and mind via daily worship. Sing praises to the Lord and Mother. Get initiation into the spiritual path. Perform japa of the holy names. Engage earnestly in meditative prayer and increase your devotion to Ishvara. There's some very wise people have come. And maybe one just came. I hope that's one.
I think it's the little boy.
Yes, the little boy next door loses his birdie over the fence. He has to come around and come through the house to get it, or his game can't go on. Yes, I've said there's some very wise people who have then gone to their teachers and said, well, I understand now the difference between the real and the unreal. What do I do? Increase your devotion to God is the answer. Everything that was in the way to loving God as it truly is, where was that ignorance that was in your mind? You got rid of that. You got rid of the thorn of ignorance in your flesh with the thorn of knowledge. Then you threw them both away, Sri Ramakrishna said. So then your love of God can increase, and you can dance and sing in ecstasy, and all of these practices become principles. And then you are a realizer of yoga. If you can realize all four, that's very, very wonderful. Like Vivekananda says here, I want to give truth dry, hard reason. That's the Jnanam. Softened in the sweetest syrup of love, that's the bhakti, and made spicy with intense work, that's the karma, and cooked in the kitchen of yoga, that's meditation, so that even a baby can easily digest it. So that was his idea of the religion of the age. Didn't have necessarily any personality connected or concerned with it, except your own. So if you could do away with your own small self and make an offering of it into the great self, Tachnayora vrinnimahe gatung yagyaya gatung yenupataye, you dissolve that small self into the great self, then you're beyond all personality problems and into the principles. He also says in the same way here, while we're on that vein, would to God that all men were so constituted that in their minds were all these elements: philosophy, that's the Jnanam, mysticism, that's the meditation, emotion, that's the devotion, and work, karma, were equally present in full. That is the ideal, my ideal of a perfect being. Everyone who has only one or two of these elements I consider one-sided, and this world is almost full of such one-sided men, with knowledge of that one road only in which they move. So, synthesis of yoga, purna yoga, integral yoga. In Sanskrit and English, this idea has been proposed for some time now, finally brought to complete fruition with the advent of Swami Vivekananda in this world, and how he saw it epitomized in Sri Ramakrishna. In fact, they even sing about Swami Vivekananda in that sense. this beautiful stotram that has been written. Gurur griptale svatvatmanam dadau parikshantantaram bahu prashnayir brisham Vishudai sevanair bhavam stampi priye Viveka nandate prabhate pranjalihi Narendra shashave Narendra yovane Narendra kridane Narendra shikshane Narendra palane Narendra yarpane Viveka nandate prabhate pranjalihi, which translates into English as, for the good of the world and as an example of discrimination, you scrutinized your guru with thorough questioning and close observation. After assessing the perfect qualities of the Paramhamsa and finding him to be of unsurpassed realization, you reverently offered yourself at his lotus feet, pleasing him with your pure and devoted service. In this auspicious dawn of illumination, O Vivekananda, we offer you our profuse salutations. And then in another vein, Vimoksham svatvanas chatur yoga bihi. Chatur, four, yoga, the four yogas. Pritagva samahatayir hitam lokasya cha tavagya sadayeriti priyanaraha viveka nandate prabhate pranjalihi naren. On into the chorus. So basically this verse, very beautiful and indicative of this chart we're looking at right now, in accord with this fourth sloka, says, O Vivekananda, your message, transmitted from the platform of non-duality, is for the realization of the soul and the good of the world. By reinterpreting and coalescing the four yogas and making them accessible and understandable to humanity, you have destroyed the foundation of ignorance. In this age and ushered in a new era. In this auspicious dawn of illumination, O Vivekananda, we offer you our complete salutations. So that was the motto for the Ramakrishna order. Atmano moksharta tichai jagaditaya cha. Or something. Atmano moksharta. Yeah, titaya cha means cha and for the jagat, for the world. So first you get Atmano Moksharta, that is liberation. Atman, realize yourself. Atmano Moksha, and then that's first, and then the good of the world will happen, almost spontaneously. So that was the motto he made for Ramakrishna order, so that it could help the world, which it's been doing ever since, and coalescing the four yogas also. Bringing it to the rest of the world so that they have a path in this age out of darkness of Kali Yuga. And he says, for the worlds, lokasya cha, and for the world. Then, if we looked at Jnana Yoga, then recite the slokas of the scriptures, memorize the slokas of the scriptures, take teachings from an illumined teacher. Comprehend the meaning of the scriptures, discriminate between the real and the unreal, penetrate through cosmic appearances, contemplate the nature of reality, abide continually in non-dual realization. Pretty much the swiftest of all paths, but the hardest is right there. This is the slowest and the easiest. This is the slow boat to India and the scenic route. See? bhakti, dancing, singing. And this is, I want out. I'm clean, I want out of the bath. There's one great soul makes it to Mahat and says to Lord Brahma, wonderful, wonderful all your worlds, here and below. But I'm through with them. I want to go beyond you. And Lord Brahma points to Om behind him, the sound, the divine sound, says, you may pass, you see. So he passes through the cosmic body, the appearance of the first Sankalpa, the very first vision of form, and all its beauty. It's very beautiful, very sattvic. There's nothing wrong with it. It's pure sattva. It's higher than heaven, much higher than heaven we imagine. And then, but he wants to go to formlessness. He wants to go to his essence. So he passes beyond to Om, the word. And they say that Lord Brahma's day is 4 billion years long, and Lord Brahma's night is 4 billion years long. So you can imagine how long the lifetime of a Lord Brahma would be. It's a great soul they're talking about there. But at the end of that long lifetime, then another great soul will come to take Lord Brahma's place. Lord Brahma will then turn around and disappear into Om. So in the meantime, I envision that the light of Om is just shining out through the Trinity. You know, their backs are to it. And these chit matras, this atoms of intelligence that we were just talking about, that form objects much later down the scope, are just shining through their cosmic bodies, and that's turning into worlds. Lord Brahma sits on a 1,000-petaled lotus coming out of the navel of Lord Vishnu, opens, and all these 1,000 petals are different worlds and lokas that, with many millions of beings inside of each one of them, that Lord Brahma presides over, with the divine lordship, not the power to dominate, which is a lower occult power, but the benign rulership. Aishvarya it's called. It's compared to Balam, which is a power that's more selfish. So those ones whose intellect are unattached everywhere, who are endowed with non-dual understanding, they reach the consummate knowledge. This is what Samkriti is looking for from, or wants to test his knowledge from Surya Narayan. You have to realize that there is the path of principles and then there's the path of deities. And you can put them together. You probably should put them together. But when you hear about these through words out here in the physical universe, it seems unthinkable. See, like maybe it's just fantasization or imagination. But so are a billion suns in the sky. Fantastic. So there are things unseen in this universe, and its infinity, then they're just a reflection of what's inside of you. So you must turn inside and see the source of all these things coming out of your own consciousness, infused with your own consciousness. And of course that's not I, me, and mine anymore. It's thou, thee, and thine, which Ramakrishna would say. See, that's all Mother's wisdom, and it's all her worlds. And then you'll understand what being a witness of that is all about. Being detached, extremely detached from it is all about. And seeing that light and being that light, being infused with that light. That's called samadhi, or nirvana, what the feeling like that is. Of course, beyond feeling. But all of this, of course, can be put in very definite terms with the Jnana Yoga. That's why we use it, and why Swamiji brought it to us in the form of Vedanta. Veda, Vid, the highest wisdom. We belong to Club Vid. That only leaves Raja Yoga, which is the most comprehensive system of all, 8-limbed. Raja Yoga, Patanjala, because it was composed or brought together, infused by Lord Patanjali. The only system that's named after a personality, as it were, in India. So they could see how much they regarded the father of yoga in that age. That age was maybe 140 AD when he systematized this eight-limbed system again. So some 700 years after Lord Buddha, a few hundred years before Vedavyas. So, and of course, he was going to take rebirth again as Shankara's guru. Father of yoga was born as the son of Vedanta's guru, and that was about 600. So historicity has it in this way, as close as we can determine, but it's a very in-depth yoga with 8 limbs and been commented on by dozens of great commentators. I'm talking about Indian commentators. The Western ones still missing a few important things like a parinama. Like all of this yoga goes on, all this practice goes on, but it doesn't change Brahman one iota. It doesn't change yourself one iota. That's pure and perfect, immaculate from the inception, beyond inception. No time is in it, no space is in it, no change is in it. And so it has to be seen as anterior to all such things. Maya is full of name, form, time, space, and karma. Maya is full of that. Nature is full of that, not Brahman. It's empty, empty, empty. It's empty of all things painful. And so it's just pure bliss. Has to be experienced. So what is this yoga that leads us so well? Patanjali sums it up: dwell in solitude, restrain the senses, control the mind, and engage in meditation. You will thus reach perfection in Brahman. Now, it's probably as few words as I could find in the Yoga Sutras that described it so succinctly. And you would want to then calm and control the mind's thoughts, the chitta vrittis, because some of them are aklista. Should start the other way. Some of them are klista, pain-bearing. But there are thoughts, vibrations in your mind that are non-pain-bearing. So you'll want to calm the pain-bearing ones with the non-pain-bearing ones. Really, yoga rather starts there. And very little is said about this, or this. If you don't have a hold of the prana once you get in the body, then, well, as the Irish say, you're fecked anyway. See? So you're going to be tree-fecked if you're not careful. All 3 worlds. So you want to jump right to the mind. You want to leave the body with a fine and fettle mind, and then when you resume reincarnation, if you want to, at your own will, then you'll start off with a pure mind. That's why these beings are so great. And you don't see them doing practice. They don't have to. So you think, God's unfair. But God had nothing to do with it. Go back to your non-dual reality and you see that God's not involved. Never was, never will be. It's acreate and perfect. So you're trying to reach that perfection. So you can calm and control the mind's thoughts, purge the mind of desires and passions, 6 of one, 8 of the other, still the mind's tendency of distraction, uncover and neutralize all karmas. So you can see how the synthesis of yoga can be inferred after you compartmentalize them, how much these things fuse together and work off of each other. So if you can borrow like that, you'll have a much better yogic path to tread. Reach the samadhi of wisdom. Like right now, you're all having a samadhi of wisdom. Did you know that? You're in the samadhi of wisdom right now because you're with a wisdom knower, and I was with a wisdom knower, and he was with a wisdom knower. And as long as you keep your mind in this wisdom, that's a samadhi. You see, 7 seconds is a samadhi in meditation. If you can keep 7 seconds of your mind in Brahman, much easier than said. Okay, let's try it. Ready? Oh, I thought of dharma, see. Oh, that's my problem. I can't stand Brahman because my mind always goes to the dharma. So that's a problem I'll have to deal with later. So, if you can, what to speak of, klistavrittis, pain-bearing thoughts come up. You see, oh, what do I have waiting for me at home after I walk out of the door of the ashram? Or when I stand up and walk around on my old legs, then what? So, it's better to be in the wisdom samadhi. Sit still your mind, stop your breathing process, meditate, just like he said here, and reach the wisdom samadhi. You can have that. It's yours if you can keep your mind. It's easy to keep your mind focused once you're interested. If you're disinterested, then of course it's people are reading the scriptures and 2 minutes later they put it down, stand up and walk away with nothing. But another day you might read it for an hour, see, and be very pleased by it, and you still walk away with almost nothing. You're missing the point. You have to infuse your mind with it, imbibe it, live in it, think about it, ruminate in it. It's got to be your whole life. It has to take you over completely, and that's called sampragyata. Actually, sampragyata is seated samadhi. It's the first of the seated samadhis in yoga, called savichara, with objects. You're having knowledge with objects, with music, with books, with iPods, whatever. It's samadhi with objects, and then you're going to have to go to samadhi without objects from there. Put these all down, see if you can still carry on with the light of these, the thought of them, savitarka. And then there are other samadhis that follow that, including bliss, samadhi of bliss, which you don't want to get caught in. And then the samadhi of egolessness. That's a beautiful sananda, sasmita they're called. So this is all what he's saying here. Reach the samadhi of wisdom would be the first rung of that samadhi ladder that was one of the main purposes why Sri Ramakrishna came to us. If you look at Sri Ramakrishna's life, what stands out most of all is not necessarily that he proved the harmony of all religions, not necessarily that he brought Divine Mother of the Universe to us for the first time, but it's that he's in samadhi all the time. And he's showing that our true nature is that we don't have to be out of samadhi, that it's risky to be out of samadhi, and that's our true nature, and we can get back into it in this lifetime and hold that. It would be an evenness of mind. Father of Yoga calls that ekagra, because there's like, nervous mind. That's unhealthy mind. Kshipta it's called. Then there's mudda, dull mind. The sine wave is like that. The restless mind is like this. Dull mind is like that. And then there's vikshipta. Now I'm good, now I'm bad, now I'm happy, now I'm sad. So it's mind that's like a fly that lights on sugar sometimes and then unmentionable things other times. But then you get to ekagra, which is flat line. So you finally died, your ego's finally died. So it's flat line in yoga would be that evenness of mind where you never fall out of that anymore. Just stay there, no matter what happens to you. I mean, maybe that's why Samkriti went to the sun god. See what happens to me there. If he tells me things I don't know, how am I going to respond to that? Or if my knowledge doesn't jibe with his knowledge, what am I going to do? I mean, so there's all sorts of things in which you'll encounter at different levels of your being. But the whole teaching of Patanjali is non-reactionary. You must not react to anything. Stay even-minded in all things. In your death, as it approaches you, or in the bounties of life that come at you unasked. May stay even in all of it. And there's that word I mentioned in the first half. Next, gain kaivalya. Get your separation from nature. Shankara sings about it in terms of wombs. Namrichor nashanka name jati beda Pita naiva me naiva mata majanmaha Chidananda rupaha Shivoham Shivoham Namrichur, I have no death. Why? Name Jati Beta, because I was never born. How can the birthless suffer death? And I have no mother and no father, so I was never born in a womb. And so he's not the body, he's saying, basically. The body is born in the womb of nature. So he wants to get Kaivalya, and has Kaivalya before he enters in. 32 years later, when he passed, he was also in Kaivalya. So he's not born of nature. He was not born at all. So Kaivalya was a word that Father of Yoga used for the penultimate. You see, you get wisdom samadhi first, right? Then Kaivalya happens. So that's in order. Kaivalya would mean isolation from nature, and there's nothing higher than that except nirvikalpa or nirvana. But you're going to need to divorce yourself from the form-making machine first. And that form is unmanifested prakriti, is in seed state inside of you, latent, and it's very subtle. It's actually more than subtle, it's causal. You have a causal body that you experience in deep sleep tonight, very blissful, but it's still based on those seeds. You'll water them again and wake up. At some point, you won't water them anymore. You'll be like Lord Brahma turning away and seeing Om, and losing his interest in all the worlds, hundreds and thousands of worlds. He's over it. See? Get over it. Must be some psychiatrist to the gods that came along and counseled them. Well, I've really got this problem. I'm not interested in the Leela anymore. Well, you've got to get over it, man. Probably Prajapati, the great psychologist. Give it up. Then finally immerse yourself in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, as I was saying. So these four yogas make a great study, and we go through them at least once or twice a year. Now they've been put in such a form that you can see the bullet points. There's, of course, much more to all of them. So Bhakti Yoga, union with reality via one-pointed devotion. Raja Yoga, union with reality via focused meditation on divine reality. Jnana Yoga, union with reality via knowledge of the Atman. And Karma Yoga, union with reality via selfless action offered as service to God and mankind. And the final quote there, the teaching of the new incarnation, Sri Ramakrishna, is that the best points of yoga, that's Raja, devotion, bhakti, knowledge, jnanam, and work, karma, must be combined so as to form a new society. So he wants a kitchen of yoga, he wants a new society, and he wants people who aren't one or two-sided anymore. He wants four-sided beings walking around him. He used to say, in fact, I'll go anywhere, to anyone, to the scientist, to the worldly person, to the atheist. I'll go everywhere, anywhere to preach this Vedanta. But if I had my druthers, I would just be with the lovers of God. Wants to be with the lovers of God, talking only about God. So I think that's unwrapping Sloka 4 with its reference to inborn tendencies to act and noble actions that you can engage in to better, like this chart here showed. Now, the next slokas are put together, 5 and 6. So we'll take 2 at once in the remaining time today. Tomorrow we'll take 7 and 8. So let's read it first. Sloka 5. Always one hesitates as regards to instinctive actions of the unregenerate. One never refers to what may compromise others, but attends to their righteous deeds. One does gentle deeds that pain no one, always dreads sin, and avoids all forms of self-gratification. And that's 5 and 6. I'll read 7, though we'll refer to it, we'll come back to it tomorrow, because it's connected. Such a one's speech is informed by affection and love. It is lovely and fit, with due regard to time and place. So there I want to show you some teachings tomorrow about the 3 sorrows, which is a teaching that came before the Four Noble Truths of Buddha by several thousand years. Lord Copula's teaching of the 3 sorrows. You can see this has been in India and entertained for millennia. But back to this about deeds, righteous deeds, not compromising, and do gentle deeds that pain no one. I think I brought with regard to that this teaching of Divine Mother on the Purusharthas, called the 4 fruits of life. The Purusharthas. So there have been some people, teachers I've heard, that have referred to them as Kama, Artha, Dharma, and Moksha. But my teacher never did that. He made a point to put Dharma first. He said, Kama and Artha, that is desire and wealth, will always lead to bondage if you don't put Dharma before them. So he changed the order. So in this chart I put Dharma first, and life lived in pursuit of a spiritual path. Dharma, sometimes you hear it defined as righteousness, but that's a loaded word in the West with its Catholicism and Christianity, and has a sort of limited meaning, going to heaven and so forth. But that's not, it wouldn't explain Dharma, as you can see by some of these charts you've seen today, that Dharma goes much, much deeper than morality and immorality. So, you might say Dharma and Adharma is really a good teaching, with Swadharma as its completion. So if a Dharma is there, you're aware that there's wisdom. That is, ignorance infers the presence of wisdom. So you'd take the thorn of ignorance out of your flesh with this thorn of knowledge, Sri Ramakrishna said, and be free. So Dharma being put first means that all wealth will be gained legitimately, and all desires will be satisfied in the Dharma, instead of inflamed, like putting gas on them instead of water. You want the desires to be fulfilled, and that can only happen in the Dharma. There's actually 9 forms of satisfying desires. 3 of them are inferior, and well, you might say 3 of them are not possible. People are trying to do them all the time, and the other 6 are gradated up to, like, such things as a samvedana, means that you just are invisible to your own desires. It'd be like hearing a train coming miles away by putting your ear to the track. You just step away, the train goes by. It'd be like asamvedana, would be like knowing yourself so well that you know desires are on the way and you just step out of the way of them. And most people can't do that. They don't have even the inkling of an idea that they should step away from certain desires, that their lives have been based on repeating desires over and over again, and that they've never gotten free by that. Maybe never even thought of freedom. Sri Ramakrishna made a funny statement once, horribly funny, you might say, that most people never think of God even by accident. Well, that's a real bad situation to fall into. Well, there you can see bullet points and quotes. Let's go through it in the remaining time. Life lived in the pursuit of a spiritual path, and this is a fruit granted to you by the Mother Path. So, Divine Mother, in her bounteous compassion, bestows these fruits upon those lovers of God. And followers of Dharma would, of course, qualify for that. Followers of morality, virtue and vice, according to India, that's not going to be very effective. There's a song, actually, I can remember, says, where it's sung that Mother's divine reality never occurs to those who believe virtue and vice are real. So they're caught in this virtue-vice web. But when you get to dharma, and you get beyond morality and immorality, and you get higher knowledge, then you're starting to see things as higher knowledge and lower knowledge. Well, actually, I didn't move from ignorance to knowledge. I moved from lower knowledge to higher knowledge. And lower knowledge was there to protect me, like the skin of a mango, as long as I was operating under it. Now I just got ripe, and I discard the skin, and I get the fruit, you see, of the thing. So that's the way Dharma works, subtler and subtler levels. So there are 2 bullet points here, 3, sorry. Should be implemented before kama and artha are sought after. Before desire and wealth are sought after. Learn the Dharma first. It's a shield against the downsides of wealth and desire. Sri Ramakrishna said, much along the vein of money being the root of all evil, which it's not, but the use of it is. But he said that money leaves a stain on anyone who touches it, anyone who even thinks about it. He said money is like, a rich man's money is like a mirror, and the treasure is sitting in front of the mirror. So the mind is the mirror, and as long as he's got the treasure, he cannot help but think about all this treasure he's got. Occupies all the thoughts of his mind. And that's why the father of yoga, if you look back here, one of the great teachings of yoga is aparigraha, and people don't understand that very fully. They say, oh, we're not supposed to give gifts. I don't understand that. It's Christmas time. Let's just do away with that one because I don't understand it. But the reason why you shouldn't give and accept gifts is that it makes you forget your past lifetimes. Think of it. You're born and you have a chance to remember your past lifetimes right away. It's like waking up from dream and into waking, and you have a chance right then to realize what happened to you in deep sleep. But you don't. You just jump right into the outer dream. So you have a chance to meditate and go back to where my mind was 5 minutes ago in deep sleep. And that's a doorway to formlessness, to bliss, to peace. But you don't take it. See? So it's the same way on the longer scale of things, birth, life, and death. See, you're born again, and they put you into mode of commerce right away. You're trained that way. From early on, as soon as you can walk and speak, you're put to work. Work is the midday sun that's burning the vitals of humanity. So that's what Patanjali says makes you forget your past lifetimes. This is why we don't always all remember all the knowledge we learned, so we go back to school. Sometimes I go to school and I tell the people in the class, are you here again? Teachers start sweating. Why did we let this guy in the classroom? You know all this already. It's all inside of you. Education is the manifestation of knowledge already within you. Worship is the manifestation of devotion already within you. Religion is the manifestation of devotion already within you. God already within you. So you're just sitting there going to school again, learning the same thing you learned before. But if you didn't engage yourself in artha and kama without dharma all the time, you'd realize this, and you'd start putting most of your thought into realizing who you are, not who you think you want to be or who you think you are. You're not in the game of becoming anymore. You're right in the very center of being. See? Not becoming, that's nature. Being is your soul. All activities take place in nature, not in your soul, Krishna says. So these great truths, which are leaning towards this non-dual, second sloka, all is one. He says, certain. I like that. All is certain. Many branching are the decisions of the unwise, but single branched is the decision of the wise. See? So you're very certain about yourself as the Atman, and nothing can dissuade you from that certainty. Incertitude doesn't exist in you. Doubt doesn't come into it. See? Ignorance is unreal, then how can it cause you any real doubt? But you started off with ignorance being real, and they taught you that. Oh, you must go to school because you're ignorant. But the most learned man I ever knew was Sri Ramakrishna, and he was illiterate. So, should be implemented before karma and artha are sought after. I think I made my point there. Second bullet point, must be adhered to in all activities to ensure harmonious existence. And third, will be transcended with the attainment of moksha. So dharma, and it says, you must be aware of the end of knowledge in truth. Krishna says in the Gita. Knowledge can become a great evil unless it ends in truth. I think the Western society, especially America, is the epitome of that saying. If you're just hanging out in your secular knowledge and lower knowledge and all that, comes temptation. You see, where do we go now? We discovered the secret of nature. It's got great power in it. Physical power only, and power to dominate over others is what it ends up to be. Somebody sent me I was quoting one of the scientists at the explosion of the atomic bomb, and I couldn't remember his name, so I got this email, and it was Oppenheimer. So Oppenheimer was there, at the blowing up of the first atom bomb, and he was like, quoted the Gita as soon as he saw it explode. I have become the destroyer of worlds, he said. He was sitting in the bunker with all these military people, and he'd already made himself very unpopular with them because he was quoting Krishna all the time. I see a picture of him as he looks very enlightened, like otherworldly. So there are scientists out there that know what's being meddled with, and probably they have some hopes that there'll be some good to come out of it, which there will. But lower knowledge must end in truth. That puts together all dreams, all fantasies, all impossibilities, all mysteries, all superstitions will end when you know truth. The quote there is, as we reach the end of our class, dharma, religious righteousness, is the support of the whole universe. All people draw near to a person who is fully devoted to dharma. Through dharma, a person chases away sin. All are supported by dharma. Therefore, they say that dharma is the means to liberation. Narayan Upanishad. Narayan is like Surya Narayan, is like that great soul. Do we have time for kama? Maybe we'll do half this morning, and then tomorrow morning we'll do the other half to launch us in. Let's look then how kama can be legitimate if dharma is put first. Legitimate desires not contrary to dharmic laws. First, they must be monitored and controlled in order to avoid rebirth in samsara. Because even sattvic people, good people, want to go to heaven, and according to India, that's rebirth in samsara. You're still at the three lower centers. Heaven is right here, in the womb, in where food is digested, where water is taken in, where the baby is born. That's the third center, and that's heaven. So in and out of these three centers, Sri Ramakrishna said, souls are transmigrating all the time. If they die at the lowest center, it's animal existence for them, maybe even as animals. If they rise higher, it's existence with worldly attached people at the sexual organs. See, if they rise higher, it's with their ancestors. See, food, pleasures, drink, intellectual attainments, ritualistic attainments only, but nothing of real love for God at the fourth center. They don't have that yet. There's a barrier right here between the Manipura and the Anahata chakra. See. And it's called a granthi, a knot. And the only way you can penetrate that knot in your inward journey is to love God more than the world. Billions of souls love the world more than God. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, ignorance is more powerful than knowledge. avidya shakti is more powerful than vidya shakti. That's true at these three lower centers. But when knowledge awakes and is given a fine point, with the other four yogas, the other three yogas helping it, then you can sharpen it and penetrate through and reach the heart. And that would be where you would hear anahata. Anahata means om. So you hear the divine sound there. You begin to hear it here. That is, people are having, ancestors are having experiences of light and sound here. But they never realize them, take them very far. So you'd have to penetrate through the Vishnu Granthi to get there. What else is there can be refined and sublimated so as to lead towards a higher destiny. That is, desires. You want to take them to a higher desire. There are illegitimate desires and there are legitimate desires. For instance, love God is a legitimate desire. Love the world is an illegitimate desire. So you're going to have to make that discrimination process between the real and the unreal in order to understand that. Separate the two and take to yourself what is true. Render unto yourself. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and take unto yourself what is the Lord's. Is that how it's said? Finally, should be aligned with devotion to God and freedom from attachments. So there's where you probably want to work karma yoga into that mix. The quote there, and then we'll end for this morning. There are two kinds of desires, one that stimulates enjoyment and one that quickens dispassion. In the case of the devotees who adhere to dharma, desires are mere nothings. The more they come and go, the better it will be. And so, my children, do not worry. The desires of your mind, you must fulfill them. Later on, you will attain to eternal peace. So she gives us a middle way. Krishna, Buddha, Sharda, they all gave us a middle way to work ourselves by stages into this highest truth. Om Bhadram Karnabhihi Shrinayama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabhir Yajatraha Sthiraya Rangaish Tushtuvam Sastanuvir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Svasti na Indra Vrida Shravaha Svasti na Pusha Vishwadevaha Svasti nastarksho arishtanemihi Svasti no brihaspatir dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we see with eyes what is good and spiritual. May we hear with ears what is noble and uplifting. And may we, while worshipping the Lord and Mother of the universe, with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.